You gotta say it. What are you gonna say, kiddo? It's Violet Show, baby.
No?
No? You get gun shy on me all of a sudden? And welcome back to TLDR. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. With me, as always, is my shy daughter, Suddenly, and my hunk in crime. Together, we are the Woodward Bernstein of the Dorkshire Gooniverse. Fryer, my guy, how's it going?
I thought this was going to be the Nick and Violet show starting today. We had talked about this. Her and I had discussions behind your back. And I was really excited for this. And now it looks like she just, you want to go and paint it as cold feet. But to me, it's like she's just trying to stab me in the back. So I'm very much personally offended by this. So I'm going to take you back. We'll keep this as TLDR under the same format. No My Little Ponies in the DSG moving forward. Sorry, man. The way it goes.
She was so excited for it, guys. And I tell you what, when she made her little appearance last week, all she's been talking about is having her own show. So first audition, little tough, but she'll get used to it.
Yeah.
But before we get cracking, no pun intended, but intended.
Boo.
Right.
What a start for the Gilmores today, man!
I know,
this
right?
is unbelievable.
I have a huge shout out and thank you to give to a friend of the show, Sheldon Buchert.
Yep.
He's a Canadian artist. He's been doing a ton of phenomenal covers lately. He's been on fire. He's been doing them for Department of Truth. He's done a bunch for Something Is Killing the Children, and he's drawn one of my favorite covers of recent memory, and this was for Radiant Black. And I'm gonna, for those watching at home, I'll pull it up real quick. He sent me a signed cover of the book, and I just love the colors. I love the art there. And then I got a couple of prints for Swaggins because she's into Spider-Gwen. So he sent a package, autographed, beautiful art, huge shout out. Check him out on Instagram. Let's see. I should have had that pulled up already, but I didn't because I'm a yutz. Nicholas.
You're all thrown off because you didn't think you were going to be on the show at all today.
It's just Sheldon Buchert art. We'll put a link to that. I'll tweet out a link to that so people can check that out and his art out. And absolutely fantastic. 1 second.
Yeah, he does some awesome stuff. I mean, I know that the Spider-Gwen stuff. You're a big obviously Vi's a big fan of Spider-Gwen, and he's been doing some great stuff. He's done some Department of Truth stuff too. But yeah, the Spider-Gwen was definitely what jumped out to me most. But yeah, maybe we'll have to find a way to get him on at some point down the line, Joe, and talk. I know we talked with John Boy about some of his cover work, but I think that it ended up being a deeper conversation about just being an artist in the business on the whole. Yeah. And where Sheldon's doing a lot of cover art and variants and everything, I'd be curious, to know his process and maybe talk about some specific covers that he's done and what that whole process is like. Well, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. The stuff that you got, man, is freaking great.
Yeah. I'll post pictures of it and I'll tweet it out and we'll throw it up on Instagram. But go check him out. He's got a shop up there, and just the prints he makes are absolutely fantastic. So I just wanted to take a second and thank him. And I can't wait to hang those bad boys up. And so with that, Nicholas, we have some catching up to do. And I got to tell you, I'm backed up. But I'm also behind on my comic book reading.
Oh, geez. Well, you've given me advice on how to deal with that before, the former, not the latter so much. So I feel like it's kind of ironic that now you can't figure out how to clean yourself out, I guess.
I'll tell you what, work's really thrown a wrench in my whole comic book reading.
We're still talking about the comic books? If I was talking about, okay, my bad.
Yeah, well, that's
we're just off to a rip-roaring start today, pun and not intended. But anyways, what was I going to say? So I've actually been able to catch up on a few things recently. I totally get it with you going back to work and everything, how that would throw you off. I know, for me, different times, different changes in work is definitely messed with my reading, but you'll power through. I know you will. And you actually, you act like you haven't been reading a ton, but the book you're talking about today, you had to read a bunch of volumes. I read 3 for this thing. So you've been reading plenty. Let's be honest here. But for me, Mighty Morphin 13, I will talk a little bit more about the Power Rangers a little bit because there was a Power Rangers book that came out this week. Undiscovered Country 17, of course, Scott Snyder, Charles Soule. Been enjoying that series. A Man Among Ye 7, which I think is a solid series. I think that you're dealing with kind of historical fiction and everything, so that's always kind of interesting. And it's a character who we've heard of in the past, but just you didn't get to know a whole hell of a lot about just because you kind of got lost in history. But not a book I necessarily want to talk about on here. It's solid, I would say. It's a solid book that I continue to read and enjoy, but it's just there's not a whole lot of depth to it. I think it's designed for a younger audience more so, but still good nonetheless. Philadelphia 18, not for a younger audience. Probably the most violent issue we've gotten so far from Philadelphia. Am I right?
I meant to read this the other day,
You
and
still haven't? Oh boy, Joe.
no, I know. Like I said, like I told you, I'm backed up,
Yeah.
and it's just a weird funk I've been in. But like this is the most important book I need to read, and I'm really pissed at myself for not reading it. So I will be diving into that one. I will definitely have this on my catching up for next week.
It was friggin' outstanding. Might have been the best issue to this point. Definitely the most violent issue to this point from start to finish. But then I also on this app called Hoopla. For those who haven't heard of it before, it's pretty revolutionary. I feel like I've talked about it on the show before, but
you've been a big supporter. I think you got Keith onto it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know why nobody. So it's good. Keith's on it too. I didn't realize that. I don't really waste my time with him too much. I mean, it's the lesser podcast in the DSG. I think we're kind of too big time for that. But anyways, I actually read a trade, the first volume of a book that Joe has talked about on this show from a while back. Look, Joe and I read a bunch of different stuff that we've talked about, and it comes up in trades later. Sometimes it doesn't. This is the book I think I would like to save for the trade when that next one comes up. And who knows, that could be in a friggin' year with the way that the format of the show has changed. But I'm not telling you now. And I wanted to tell the people, but I'll tell you what, man, I read that first volume and it was like, oh, wow. Like Joe told me this was a good book, and it's even better than he sold it as. It's
going to rack my fucking brains to try to figure this out.
Awesome. So I cannot wait to talk about that on here. But we're looking in the past in a while. We got, ways to go before that. Right now it's time to look ahead and talk about what's new from this week in comics, Joe. Let's start with DC. I know we got a few books that we wanted to dig into just to run through some of the other ones that we're not going to talk as much about. There's Justice League 69, Suicide Squad 9, Blue and Gold 4, which I fell off on and you did too. Batman Secret Files, The Gardener, can't miss issue 1. Aquaman, The Becoming, issue 3. Batman versus Bigby, A Wolf in Gotham, issue 3. Refrigerator Full of Heads, issue 2. Did you get to the first issue of this yet? No. Okay. And then Wonder Woman Evolution, issue 1. I know you're all over on Batman. Issue 117 came out this week, but that is not one of the books that you want to talk about. Where do you want to start? Because I know you got a few.
So I'm going to start with Nightwing. I know we're both reading this. You haven't gotten to it yet, but I read it this morning, and man, this was I love Tom Taylor's. I'm glad the Fear State shit is over. Okay, so there's been this one includes 3 Nightwing books that have been part of Fear State. The first one and the third one are about the same. The second one was actually pretty decent. Like the last Nightwing issue we got felt a bit more like Nightwing. But like this one, like it was just it felt a little rushed. It felt a little shoehorned in because like with Batman 117, like Fear State ended, right? So Fear State's over. Nightwing can get back to what it was. It's not that it was a bad issue. It was just like, okay, whatever. It was just more Simon Saint, Fear State, I'm like, I didn't really love Fear State to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that's over. And there was a different artist for these last 3 books than Tom Taylor has had with him with his main run with Nightwing. And it's not that the art is bad. It's just like, I don't know. Like, don't fuck with my Nightwing. You know, like Nightwing has been a damn near perfect comic book, and not that this slowed it down, but I'm just glad that it's done. It's over. We can get back to Bloodhaven and get back into the story that Tom Taylor was telling before this. That was really freaking good.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's Bruno Redondo who's the main artist for Nightwing. You get a little break from him. I mean, like, his stuff is really clean, really crisp, and I think for Nightwing, like, with certain characters you want, legacy characters, you want a certain vibe with those characters. And it's one thing if it's not their book. Like if this was a Batman book and you're seeing Nightwing pop up, you want a different vibe with Batman because it's so grim and everything like that. So you understand he's going to have a different feel to him, as much as he's still kind of like a beacon of hope. In Nightwing, it's all about him, so it should all have like a feel that reflects that character. So I don't blame you for feeling that way. I think Redondo's just he's done really well, and I cannot wait for what he has planned next. And it makes sense to like, I'm with you. Having something in the middle of any event, any of our like mainline issues going into an event, it's never ideal because it always kind of impacts the flow of the story because you're taking like a quick sidestep here, or maybe it's a look back in time, whatever it is. But in this case, it makes a lot of sense for what we have coming in Nightwing 87. Joe and I have been talking about it for a while. We could never remember if it was 86, 87, but I know because of today, it's 87. That's where we're going to get the Bruno Redondo edition of Nightwing, where there are no panels.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see what this shit looks like. And it's definitely like a risky play, but when you have Tom Taylor right in it, it's like this, you have to think this is going to be kick-ass.
This might be I might buy 2 issues of this.
Oh,
one to read, right, and one to have in my long box. But then, depending on how it's drawn out, I might want to open it up and sort of find a 2-page spread that's my favorite, like just the art, like the continuous art, and possibly put it up on the wall.
Nice. Yeah, so, I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I definitely have a lot. Like, I was going through just some stuff recently, and I pulled out the I think it's J. Scott Campbell, the Spawn's universe cover with She Spawn. Yeah. And it's like, I may or may not have a She Spawn action figure coming in the mail, like, next month. But I'm like looking at that shit. And it's like, I need to put this in a frame. But anyways, we're in different situations and whatnot. But it's just like, there's just so much freaking good stuff out there. It's just nonstop. But take a quick sidestep from what you've read from DC this week. And I have Robin's issue 1 to stick with the whole Nightwing team. I've been pretty excited about this one for a while because we're dealing with all the old Robins. Of course, you have the 4 guys. And then Stephanie Brown, who wasn't Robin for long, but now we have her in the mix as Spoiler, and not spoilers that are coming. Her name is Spoiler for those who don't know, and they're all kind of taking this opportunity to reflect on them as Robins. And I think it's interesting how, like, you could say maybe it's a little forced idea because, like, everybody's talking about it right now, but I actually kind of want to hear these characters break it down, where it's like, maybe they like the life, maybe they don't. I know Dick Grayson's kind of dealt with that in some capacity. We're seeing it in Robin and Batman. So to me, it felt like for a second, it was like, okay, you're going to actually have this conversation about it where you guys are like in the thick of it. Like, you really see yourself getting out. But still, I at first it was odd, but then as it was going, it's like, okay, like it works. But more importantly, where I've really been interested about this is we're dealing with another character, another female Robin, allegedly, who believes she was Robin before Dick Grayson was Robin. And that is why the only reason I want to read this series more than anything, as much as, I like Red Hood, like Nightwing, and want to see more of those guys. And I think Spoiler's pretty kick-ass. I want to get to know this Robin. I want to know if she's just out of her mind or if she has some basis off her thinking. So, and I think we already see a couple of callbacks in this first issue. I think we're going to see that throughout this series, but it's a really interesting concept, I think. And for the first issue, we talk about the art show, and I blank on who the artist is, but it wasn't necessarily what I was expecting going into this series. And I don't know if they were the same cover artist or not, but it was fine. Like the concept of this story has me interested enough that I want to see this through at least 3 issues, no matter what. It had to really suck the first issue for me to drop off, but I thought it was rock solid opening issue.
So since I claimed the last Robin, you want to take this one?
I don't know if it's going to be a TLDR one. It was solid. Like I'm probably going to give it like an 8, but like the concept is really good. So if
I'll go ahead and read it then.
Yeah, you go ahead. I think you can go ahead and read it. It'll be fine. It's only 6 issues. We could always give it the 3 Jokers treatment if it's really good at the end of it all.
But it would have to knock our socks off to give it
that's what I'm saying. But the concept, I think, is like a knock your socks off concept. It's just a matter of the execution. So the execution was fine first time around, not necessarily what I was expecting with the art, and that has an impact on things. But I still think it's worth giving a shot for those who are like, maybe not. I think you're going to have a good time. First issue, get in on it now because I could see, the printing issues now too. You don't want to, if you're at all interested, if you're all interested in it, you want to give it a shot with Robin's one. But you got 2 other DC ones before we move on to any of the other books.
Yeah, real side note, quick side note. So like this whole supply chain shit, it's brutal. You see it on the news, you're like, okay, whatever. It hasn't really impacted me until I went to Newbury Comics last week.
Yep.
To pick up my books, and there was no books other than Marvel and DC because there was an issue. I guess Diamond kind of got hacked.
Yep.
And there was an issue with Diamond, but like still, like all these other books, like getting delayed, pushed back. Like we have our list. Like, okay, these books are supposed to come out this week, but we don't get reviews. So are they really coming out, or what the fuck's going on? So like I freaked out and I bought a shit ton of Christmas gifts the other day. just to make sure they'd be here on time. You know?
Well,
But
I'll tell you what, Joe. Like for those who listen to us week to week, obviously we do what's new. And we talk about the books that are supposed to come out that week. We've definitely had instances where we talked about books that aren't out that week because we got the review copies and those books weren't printed out for some reason, and then vice versa, where we didn't talk about a book that maybe I think Philadelphia 18 is actually an example of one that we got that a week later than it actually came out. And Nita Hawes, right? That interview dropped. Supposed to be the day of the comic being released, and it didn't come out till next week. So it's like it's an absolute mess, and I don't think anybody knows like what book's coming out. Like even the PR people, because I tell them like, hey, we want this to come out the same day that the book's coming out, and then it's like, well, you know, like we talked about it last week. We have another interview that's set to come out in December that we've already done. You know, we have it planned for a certain day. If we don't hear that it's coming out like on a different day, it's like. So it's just very confusing. Actually,
and all the Kickstarter projects that we've backed. And
that's a whole nother mess. But there's another interview that we've been working on scheduling that we're gonna do. But it's just like I'm hearing like, okay, we thought it would make sense to do it at this point in the month, and now it's like it probably make more sense to do it a little bit later because like who knows what's gonna happen with this other book where like the narrative's getting handed off and whatnot. It's like it's just an absolute mess. And it's not just the indies. It's Marvel. It's DC. Like I mean. My place only had Venom for Marvel stuff when I went there. And I think I went there on like Friday. No, I went there Thursday. So I went after you. So it's like it's just crazy. But anyways,
two other books. Yep. Two other books from DC that I talked about. Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5. This really is a landmark issue. I mean, this book has been in the news, you know, because John Kent and Superman came out as bisexual, and I think that's a really tremendous thing. I think it's a really important thing, and it's a really powerful thing, in this day and age. And so in this issue, there's a moment that happens, and it's a splash page. And I think this is going to be a very important book, one that people will look back on several years from now, and not that you haven't had gay characters in comics, but when it comes to the character of Superman, I mean, it's pretty big, and it's very significant. So, I mean, Tom Taylor continues to kill it, and he's written this story very well, and he's written the relationship and everything around it, I think, just perfectly. And because it's not like, yes, it's been a major theme and it's been a major part of the book, but you still have all the other stuff going on around it, and John Kent trying to, be Superman, and, this journey of self-discovery all happening at the same time. It's not like you just focused on one and it's taken away from this storyline or it's taken away from that storyline. I think he's weaved it together very well. And it's a must-read series just from a comic book standpoint, but this issue in particular, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, he's made more news with this than anything, and we talk. We sometimes we joke about how like Tom Taylor has the hottest brand in comics. I mean, as much as we love what Sean Lewis is doing, of course, with King Spawn, and of course you got the Scorch coming up, and then the other stuff he's done. But then of course Scott Snyder has been kicking ass too. We know he has the Clear out this week from Comixology. With Tom, I mean, he's doing it with. He's doing it with Superman. He's doing it with Nightwing. He's got the Dark Ages Marvel book. Issue 3 of that is out this week too. And I'm sure. And then 7 Secrets, of course, has been an outstanding series. I've really enjoyed that. But like, this is the one that's definitely getting the most attention. And it's definitely upsetting some people because of what he's doing with John Kent. But I think that it's been outstanding what he's been doing so far. As much as I'm behind. There's like an old thing, like if you're pissing somebody off and with what you're doing with it when it's a form of media, like if you're pissing somebody off, then you're also probably making some people happy. Like if people just are in the middle about what you're doing, then you're usually not doing a really good job. That's kind of what it comes down to. So I think there's that. And I just think the way he's doing it also quality too. Like you talk about how it's like a self-discovery thing. That is a major thing. That is a major issue when you're talking about, dealing with your sexuality, whatever it is, because there's a whole spectrum with that and everything. So, I think when you're talking about Superman too, I know it's John Kent and not Clark Kent, but still 2 characters who don't necessarily get as much love, from people anymore because they're Kryptonians. I understand John Kent has had his whole thing with Damian Wayne, and that's been a little bit more interesting, but it's just, why not try something different with the character, especially when he's dealing with an identity crisis that parallels perfectly with what other people deal with when it comes to their sexuality. So, I couldn't agree with you more on what Taylor's done.
And what I think is really great about it is that it's not a crisis. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a struggle. It's just John Kent being John Kent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he does it. There isn't this inner turmoil that you might be seeing, or this narrative where he might feel conflicted. No, and there's something just about that symbol, that Superman, whether it's Clark or whether it's John, that carries a lot of weight. So seeing that and seeing how not a difficult thing it is for him, and how dealing with the Superman stuff is the most difficult stuff, that I think that sends a powerful message in and of itself. So
Mm-hmm.
great issue, definitely pick that up. And then
This is what I've been waiting for. Since I saw what was coming out for this week. I've been waiting for this moment.
I mean issue 5 was definitely the better issue, and that would have been a better cliffhanger. Like if you're going to take a 6-month break, that would have been the issue to do it on, because you're just left like, oh, like the end of that issue, your jaw kind of hits the floor and you're just like, what? And then so issue 6 is good. It's a lot of, this issue basically just sort of tells you, like, it gives you the main characters, MO.
For those who don't know, Joe's talking about Nice House on
Oh,
the
yes.
Lake issue
Sorry.
six.
Yeah.
Yes, which
Thank you,
goes on
man.
hiatus for, is it 6 months after this issue?
6 months. Nice House. Yeah. Sorry. Nice House written by James Tynion. And like,
Mm,
I guess I had to jump into it. So I'm sorry. But like the 6th issue, I mean, it was good. It was well written. The art is beautiful, but like, it didn't like leave me like, it just like, the problem is it ended, and I'm like, okay, I'll wait 6 months and I'll be excited when it comes back. But if issue 5 was the issue that they took the break on, then like for 6 months I'd just be like scratching my face off,
hmm.
clawing at the walls, waiting for the 6 months to pass. Whereas now I'm like, okay, all right, it kind of just did a lot of explanation,
Huh.
and where it ends is just like, okay, it's kind of
Hmm.
like the Sopranos finale ending, where I know that's not the end of the story, but like, I'm just like, okay, so when it kicks back up again, I know I'll be on top of it because I'll be waiting for it. But I could see where, if like casual readers, they might not have their eyeballs out peeping for it.
That's it. Yeah, and I know you're going to talk about it on the show at some point. I don't know if you're going to do it as fast as possible. If you're going to want to wait for the first trade to come out, if that comes out
Right.
before I would imagine it's going to come out before the second arc or the second half of the
I'd
story.
imagine that when I talk about Nice House on the Lake, it'll be right before the second arc kicks off. That's probably my feeling.
Right. So okay. So you're gonna have to wait. So I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to wait a while before
Yeah.
I real long while. God, I've been giving you shit this whole time, and now it's like jokes really on me. Fuck. Well, at least I don't know what happened throughout the course of all this. But I've been definitely ready for you to talk about this one on the show. But yeah, that's an interesting feeling. Like, because it's as much as it's like, because you've been so mad about this news the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm loving this series, and I hate that I'm gonna have to wait for so long. And now, like you said, like, would you would have been itching for this next issue for the next 6 months, but it's like, would you rather have it where you're kind of like, okay, I can be patient, I'll be all right. I'm gonna be excited when this comes back, but like, I'm not necessarily chomping at the bit to get going on this next thing. It's an interesting, like, I don't know,
I
conflict.
would I would have much preferred to have, like I said, it ended at issue 5, and the way
Hmm.
that issue ended, because I was like, oh yeah, give it to me now, give it right now, right now, right now. It's like when Infinity War ended, you wanted Endgame immediately,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so now I'm
It's
like,
true.
okay, all right, it's like, okay, I get it. Like, you put a nice little bow
Mhm.
on it, and now we wait 6 months, and so
I think that's an interesting thing, like, for people to experience now, like, now as we're going through it, because I know we've seen at times where it's like, I don't want, now you leave me on this crazy cliffhanger, like it happened with The Walking Dead a few years back with Negan when you first meet him and everything. It's like, now we got to wait so long. And then, of course, they drag it out over the episode and everything. It's like, what the fuck? But it's like, you wait so long for this shit. And it's like, it's just killing you this whole time. Like, I can't wait, can't wait. But now you're like at a point where you're like, I want it back, but like, I'm okay. Like, I can wait.
yeah.
And it's interesting. It's like, to experience that, because then maybe in the future you're going to appreciate when you more even when you get those crazy ass cliffhangers. Like I can't, like
Yeah.
I need that to hold me on for like the next however long the break is. In this case, 6 months. All right, we move over to Image. We have Primordial issue 3, of course, from Jeff Lemire, which I am behind on. I know you've been on top of that more. So, Time Before Time issue 7, Sweet Paprika from Mirka Andolfo issue 5. I've been enjoying that series. Very definitely different than what we talk about on here normally. Deep Beyond issue 10. Second Chances issue 4. Of course, we talked to Ricky Mamoni about that a while back. But my favorite thing that came out this week from Image is, of course, King Spawn issue 4 by Sean Lewis. And whew, this is like you want to start on this?
I mean, where do you start?
Yeah, it's
like, oh man, it's just so nuts. Like this is probably one of the higher octane issues we've had from King Spawn, maybe the highest octane issue we've had of King Spawn yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Al, we see Spawn, and he's a little cranky,
a little bit,
little cranky. And but I think my favorite part of the issue was the She Spawn stuff that we got.
Mm-hmm. And we may or may not have reason to believe you're going to start seeing more of She Spawn. Maybe not as much King Spawn. Maybe in the Scorched. I mean, we know we're going to see the character, but we may get like that. May be the chance that she gets to really shine. But that's a story for another day. But I do agree with you because there is one specific moment where she's protecting a group of individuals, and one of those individuals has to step in, and it's like she's trying to help prepare this person. And then the next page, you're like, oh shit, like it's fucking real. Like Sean is like, he's really like starting to get a flow, and with him and Javier Fernandez and everything.
Yeah.
It's been really awesome to watch, and like the scope of this stuff too. He's it's been really I've really enjoyed the series, and I think too for people who like kind of know the character but don't really know the character, like it's still. Like you can still jump in on this and be fine. I think he's kind of like moving at a good pace, but there's like enough things where it's like if I don't know entirely Spawn's history, I'm still going to be okay. He's kind of covering all his bases.
Yeah, it was. You're right. They're totally getting into a groove there, and I mean, I can't wait for the Scorch, knowing what we know about it. And but this was like we get some medieval Spawn, who I love, and the She Spawn stuff. So like. This is the first time too where like King Spawn feels like its own thing now. Like the first couple issues, it just sort of felt like a direct extension off the main Spawn line. And this one, because we get more of that imagery, we get a little bit more, diving into the mythos there of King Spawn. That this felt like, okay,
yeah,
we got this. We're in Sean's world now,
That's actually an excellent point, I think, in all this. I definitely lost sight of a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Like now, because there have been times where we're reading Sean's stuff, and it's like this is really good, but it does feel like how does this what point in time is this happening next to Spawn? Because Spawn's got his own thing going on under the mainline Spawn, but now it's like you're right. This was a big step like away from it. Where again, we're still looking back into the character's history and everything, but we're still progressing everything forward. Where it does feel very much like its own thing, and to the point where like reading this issue maybe more than ever, actually completely this issue, I'm just like. Oh, I did not think once about the mainline, like the original Spawn ongoing story. So yeah, that's an excellent point by you, Joe. Good catch. Let's see what else we got. Okay, actually, let's head over to Boom now. We have Buffy 31, Dune, House of Atreides issue 12, which you've been reading and enjoying. Maw issue 3. What?
Here's a little peek behind the curtain. I was going to do Dune on the show today, but we didn't get a review copy. So,
yeah,
had to
I don't know. It's just the same shit that like we were talking about earlier. It's so friggin' annoying. Then, of course, from Boom Box, we have Getting Dizzy issue 1. But there are 2 Boom books that we kind of want to dig into a little bit more. I'll let you start with Eat the Rich 4.
Yeah, man, this book is going to be definitely talked about on this show. And this was, I mean, it's been a cracker series, period. But this issue in particular, like this is like that pivotal issue. So I don't know. I only think it's another couple issues. Like I don't think it's ongoing. So like this was a very, very pivotal issue in terms of wrapping it up and where where it's going to go. But I can't wait to talk about this one a little bit more in depth because it is wild.
I'll tell you what, I remember when you were on this at first, and I was like, okay, Like, well, I just didn't know what like it seemed like I know somebody else reviewed it for Geeks Worldwide and they were right on it right away, but I was just kind of like, all right, cool, like awesome, like, go review it. But when you said you were reading it right away, I was like, oh shit, okay, so it is.
Yeah.
Like, this might be the real deal, and I'm glad that you're really into it. For me, of course, at Boom right now, Once and Future is of course number one on our list when it comes to Boom books. But for me, number two, well, I guess it's a tie at number two between Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers. Again, can't say it enough. Different series. Talked about both first arcs on the show a little while back. I had caught up on Mighty Morphin in between, last show and this show. Again, another review copy we did not get, so it's just, again, the industry is just running into issues right now. But it's available on Comixology, so you guys can go read it there if you want to read it. Power Rangers 13 is out this week. Did get the review copy for that. Make sure to read that ahead of this show because we have the Altarian War going on right now. It started with Mighty Morphin 13. Been very excited for the start of this. Ryan Parrott has been doing an outstanding job. He, of course, was doing Go-Go Power Rangers when our guy Kyle Higgins was doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers during the oh my God, what was the event with Draken? Why am I drawing a blank on it?
Shattered Grid.
Shattered Grid, thank you. I talked about that in the show a while back too. But that, again, love that. I love what's going on here too. And Draken is, of course, in the mix and all this. I've been telling you guys that. But the stuff that's so I'm removed enough from it now where we are removed from it enough now where I can just say, like, the character Zed, a lot has been going on with him. A character who I didn't care quite as much about. Even though I've been a Power Rangers fan for so long, like, I know he's a big villain, but I was always more enamored with like Tommy and Kimberly and actually the heroes on the side of this, less so the villains. But what Parrott has done with Zed in Mighty Morphin is, of course, now carrying over into Power Rangers, all kind of one cohesive story. And I really, it's like, if you're a Power Rangers fan, you got to read this stuff too. They've been doing a great job. Kyle was on the title. He did an awesome job. Parrott did a good job with Go-Go Power Rangers too. But this stuff now that Parrott's doing is he was already doing. He did a great job before, but this is even better. And the Altarian War too was like awesome twists with it along the way. So I've been high on this since it started, and I continue to feel that way. So I highly recommend that for all Power Ranger fans. Whew. All right. Then let's roll through these really quickly. We got Dark Horse Savage Hearts issue 5, Dynamite Army of Darkness 1979 issue 3. Is that Rodney that's writing that?
It sure is, baby.
I know you've been on that one. We got Aftershock Chicken Devil issue 2 by Hayden Sherman, not Christensen. Let's see, Titan. We have Gun Honey issue 3 was out this week. I think that was last week. Did you read that already?
It might be issue 4.
Okay. Anyways, Blade Runner Origins issue 8, Usagi Yojimbo Dragon Bellows Conspiracy issue 6 from IDW. I mentioned The Clear issue 2 from Comixology. Did you get a chance to look at that yet?
I sure did.
Okay, now this is something I'm not allowed to read for the show yet. How is it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I loved the first issue. This one, it's a lot of sort of backstory in it, so I can't wait to see the next issue and where it takes it from here.
Okay, and then we have the first issue of Radio Apocalypse from Vault, which is Rom V, which we I remember talking about this.
That was a synopsis that I just absolutely fucking butchered.
One we both want to take a flyer on, though, for sure. Yeah. And then from AWA, we've been talking about. We've had a lot of different feelings about this series from AWA. Not all robots. Issue 4 is out this week, Joe. We have both gotten a chance to look at it already. How do you feel?
So, I mean, I remember reading issue 1, absolutely loving it. And so, again, especially with the way that first issue ended, right? Like, you want to talk about a cliffhanger, right? And then the next several issues, I mean, we know, like, I mean, it's a giant, the social commentary that's going on through this book it's getting to a point where it's not just like, oh, it's good humor. It's a little like on the nose at this point. And so, like, the last couple of issues, there's been a lot of that social commentary. Like, we've seen where the story is going. And with this, I believe it's the penultimate issue. Like, the second half of this particular book, okay, we finally see like the culmination, especially the last third. Really, all that story comes to a head. But like prior to that, I'm like, oh, we're just getting more of the same here. Like, okay, I get it. The social commentary, like, this is just basically us, but you swap out a certain political party for non-empathetic robots, and
Mm-hmm.
here we are. But the way that kind of came together and the way that this issue ended was a lot like issue 1 ended. And we were talking about this before we came on today. Like, if this issue had been, if this series had been 4 issues instead of 5 total, I think it would have been
A home run.
a whole lot better.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think it would have been a home run at that point if it was 4 issues. Just, doesn't mean you couldn't have made it 5 issues and still made it really good. It just feels like they tried to belabor the point a little bit too long. And, that's what we've said about AWA. When they are rolling and they're doing like 5-issue series, and you can go longer sometimes, sure. But when they do their 5-issue series, usually there's no fat on those bones whatsoever. It moves at a really brisk pace. You're getting everything you need. It's really entertaining. Usually there's a commentary on something, and I feel like with Not All Robots, again, like where I was talking about with Robbins, like I felt like the concept is outstanding. It's awesome. And, the first issue with Not All Robots was really good. We were really high coming off that series opener. And then the second one was good, I felt like. But then when we got to 3, that's where it was kind of like, like, okay. But I liked 4 quite a bit. I still agree with you that we cut off maybe 1 issue, and maybe you could just do all of 3, or maybe, take out some of 2 and some of 1, and like spread out some of the things that happened in 3 between those 2 issues, and it would work. But it's just like, but with 4, I felt like there was a lot building up, and you see a lot of it come to a head, or all of it come to a head. I don't know how things are going to end with 5. Like, that's what's been so strange to me in all this, where I felt like this series is like it's limited series. Doesn't mean that, AWA won't come back to it. They're doing that with some stuff. We're seeing it with Hotel. That's coming out. The second volume of that's coming out soon. You can absolutely return to this world, but it's just never felt like, I don't know. It's strange to position it like that, I guess, in my opinion. Because I just don't like, are you going to keep going after issue 5? Are you going to try and bring it back? I noticed that on the comics themselves, we're not seeing like 4 of 5. It just is,
Right.
This is issue 4, period. So
Yeah.
maybe they're seeing that potential there, but at the same time, if you're going to do that, like, we need to like get an idea of what direction we want to go in with this series, because that's kind of like the biggest thing. It's like, you have a concept, you've made us think it's going to go one way, but then it's kind of like you didn't stay on that path firmly, I guess.
Well, that's just the problem with this arc, is that it was 1 issue too. Like, they stretched it out.
Yeah,
they stretched it because not much happened between 2 and 3 that you couldn't have just told in 1 issue.
right.
Because you can give that sense of foreboding. You can still drive that story of really an uprising, but from 2 different factions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, I don't know. I felt like the writing has been great, but like, because you stretched it out a little bit, it slowed the pacing down a bit, and it just made that commentary, which, granted, it's brilliant commentary. The commentary is great. It's just been a little too much.
Yeah.
And if you knock that down an issue, then I have a heck of a lot less problem with it, I think. And like I said, this issue, it was a great issue, but like, there was a point where it's like, we need to get action here, or I've lost interest.
Yeah.
And it gave us that action. So I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
But like, it was
I think when it comes to like the dialogue and all this, has been great. It's been very sound. It's the plotting that I guess has been more of the issue that we've talked about. There is a distinction between that. I've definitely talked about that quite a bit on here. And then let's move over to Marvel before we get to your book this week. Of course, there's Shang-Chi issue 6 that you've been on top of. I did fall behind on that because we were doing it for the show, but I am going to be catching up on that. Kang the Conqueror issue 4, which I know you fell off on. I didn't even really want to give that one a shot. Darkhold Wasp issue 1. Then we're both reading Dark Ages issue 3, which I could not enjoy this series more. Again, Tom Taylor, I know that's one that's you're not going to hear about as much from him, I feel like, right now, but trust us, it is absolutely a must read so far through the first few issues. And then Moon Knight issue 5 is out this week too, which of course we got a little bit of look at the show that's going to be coming up down the line. Speaking of which, you're going to be talking about a character who has a show coming out, I believe, next week.
Yeah. So I pulled a bit of an audible, I think, on Friday. When it became apparent I wasn't going to get the review copy of Dune. And then I took a look at the schedule. It's like, oh, this show is coming out. This would be a great week to talk about it, right? Heeding the advice of Goo and Wes, right? Of being timely with these sorts of things. So I picked it up on this app you've been selling me on, Hoopla.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Finally, it took you fucking long enough. Jeez.
I read the first issue and I said, "Yep, okay, this is what I'm doing it this week." I pulled the trigger. So I am talking Hawkeye from Marvel.
Hot guy on Hawkeye. Look at this.
Hot guy? Well, no, a chubby guy on Hawkeye.
Okay, whatever. I was trying to give you some credit there, but geez, you gotta be so self-deprecating. You gotta learn to love yourself, Joe. You're supposed to be the fucking doctor.
I love myself just fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another conversation. Your daughter's in the room. Unbelievable, Joe. God, this is a family show. God, back-to-back weeks where your daughter's in the room while we're doing the show, and not great times to have this happen. Unbelievable. And for those who don't know, go back and listen.
When a joke presents itself, Nick, you gotta take it, right?
I guess so. But anyways, tell me about Hawkeye.
So Hawkeye. So this is going to be a mouthful here, but written by it's from Marvel Comics, written in 2012 through 2015. It is 6 volumes. So volumes 1 through 4. The primary writer was Matt Fraction, who was also collaborated with Chip Zdarsky on Sex Criminals. We have a handful of artists through these first 4 volumes. The main artist was David Aja, but then you also had like singular issues or parts of issues drawn by Javier Pulido. We had an issue by Francesco Francavilla. Oh man, that was a tremendous one. And Annie Wu. The primary colorist here was Matt Hollingsworth, and we'll talk about the colors in a moment.
Oh, he's so good though.
And also Jordi Belair.
Oh, Jordi Belair's two of the best.
Two of the best.
Because for those who recognize the Francisco Francavilla name and can't place it, he is doing Night of the Ghoul with Scott Snyder.
Yes. Let's see. Letters: Chris Iliopoulos, Steve Lieber, Jesse Ham, and VC's Clayton Cowles. And then for volumes 5 through 6, this is a little bit more cohesive. We have writer Jeff Lemire.
Never heard of him.
Artist Ramon Perez. Colorist Ian Herring and Ramon Perez, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So the one knock I will give about Hawkeye, and it's just that volumes 1 and 2 are fairly cohesive, and then volumes 3 and 4, there's like, this issue is done by this person, this issue is done by that person. So it scatters a little bit, sort of like people sort of jumping in and contribute, which is great for all of them, but like when you look at volume 3, it's like issues 12, 13, 15, like it skips a little bit. It's still a cohesive story, but it's just like the way it's done. You know what I mean? It was just a little like.
So it wasn't like. So you get the impression that it wasn't done out of necessity for the story, where you're looking at different periods of time or everything.
Yeah, it was like one of those things. It's like, okay, like they threw an annual in there, which is part of the thing, and so like this person wrote these 2 issues, this person drew these 2 issues, this person did this. So like the writing is consistent across the board, but the art jumps around a little bit. Gotcha. And I wouldn't say that it's jarring, except for the annual. That's the one book I didn't read. I just couldn't get past the art on the Hawkeye annual that was thrown in at the end of or the beginning of volume 2. But like the writing was consistent and the writing was phenomenal. The art, for the most part, was tremendous. But like when you had these like specific issues that were drawn by someone else, like the Francavilla one was great, but then some of the other artists just wasn't my cup of tea. But with that said, this is a must-read series.
Really?
It was awesome. I'm not a Hawkeye guy. Never have been. Like he was, fine in the movies, whatever. I couldn't give 2 poops about Hawkeye.
Right.
But with the show coming up, and wanting to know just a little bit more about the character and what they might be potentially drawing upon from source material, I said, let's give it a go. And I'm really glad I did, because again, like the art for the most part is tremendous. And Matt Fraction's writing is awesome. Awesome. So volumes 1 through 4 is a total of 22 issues. And then volumes 5 and 6 is a total of 11 issues. And so what the premise of this book in this series is what Hawkeye does when he's not an Avenger.
I like that.
Right? And so the Avengers are mentioned a lot, and he throws it around, I'm an Avenger, but like he is such a pain in the ass, and he is such a flawed character in this. I love it. Right. I think of all the books we've talked about, since we've been doing the show for over a year now, is like the characters that I'm drawn to are the ones that are flawed. right? Because there's great depth there, because you see them at their highest highs and you see them at their lowest lows, and the journeys to get there, just, if the writer was worth their salt, they can just tell these tremendous stories with that. And so the other thing that I liked about this too is that, like, I have no idea if this book is the inspiration for the show, but it feels like it, because the way the comic is written, it's very episodic. Each issue, for the most part, feels like a contained story. It feels like an episode of TV.
Really?
Right? It's got like that. I don't want to say sitcom in the sense of like, it's got the yucks. Like, it is a very humorous book, but like, it just got that feel to it. Like you're watching it. Like I am reading a show. That's
Yeah, it's
kind of
kind of like Lucifer and the way that show's done, right? Where like for the
Yeah.
longest time it was just like a different episode by episode, just dealing with like some personal bullshit he's got going on.
Yeah. And there's definitely a couple of story arcs, like small arcs here, like one or two, 2 books or 3 books, like within these volumes. But it feels very episodic. And one of the things I love about it, and I love the way that Fraction approached it, is like the beginning of each book starts off with, "This looks bad. This looks really bad." And you just see Clint, just like falling from a building, like, because he makes it very, very well known. He's human. It's like, "I'm not a superhero. I'm human. Like, this shit hurts."
Yeah.
And like the first issue, he's in the hospital. He's got all these broken ribs, and he's, and so I just think that, the writing of his character, and from what we see of him in the MCU, it's just this like kind of boring. Okay, he's an archer with badass arrows. We get a little bit of depth of him in Endgame with the Ronin stuff. And like that was like the first time I think like the MCU sort of gave his character a little bit of depth. But like this book really like goes into it. He's like, it's not that he's a bad guy, he's just like, he's not always a good human being. He can be kind of an a-hole.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too when he's like been buddies with Natasha Romanoff forever. I mean, obviously, like not to say that Black Widow's not awesome or anything, but like she definitely has a checker past, and it's like it takes a certain type of individual to like fully accept that and be that person's best friend.
Yeah. And so what's also great about this is the addition of Kate Bishop, because I really don't know much about Kate Bishop. And so, she's sort of like, I wouldn't call her his moral compass, but she's his compass. Like she's there to like snap him out of it when he's in a funk, or, she provides great comic relief. She's a badass in this book. And the two of them, they're really great partners, and there's something there between them, but they're both afraid, and it's just like the comedic elements between these two. It's almost like, brother and sister almost, like there's a mutual respect for each other. And I wouldn't say like when there's something between them, like not necessarily like they go there's a romantic thing there, but like there's definitely like moments where you get this feeling like, okay, there's more to this relationship, than sort of meets the eye. But Clint's an old man, like she's his younger sister, and I think, she looks at him, maybe a little bit more than that sometimes. But like that's not what the book is about at all. That's just a great character writing that we sort of get in this. And I just, there's an overarching like especially with the first 2 volumes, there's like, it kind of like there's definitely a continuation, like something that they all have in common. So, between like there's this backstory between Clint and the Russians, and that story with them, it's like that is something that is almost present in just about every issue. And that comes to a head at a certain point. And I love the Russians in this. They're sort of the main antagonists. And I just love the way they're written in this, because every other word out of their mouth is bro. It's like, hey, bro,
really?
we're going to kill you, bro. With that.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely fantastic. And there's 2 little story arcs in this that I absolutely love. There's a 2-issue arc called The Tape, and it revolves around Clint Barton needs to retrieve a videotape because it shows him committing an assassination on behalf of the United States government. And they have to get that tape back. And he has to do it via an auction. And it's going to do it with Shield's limitless credit card. And so the story with that, the implications of it, the role Kate Bishop plays in that's a 2-issue arc. Absolutely fantastic. And then Frank Avila's issue. the issue where he draws. And it's about, like I said, with the Russians sort of coming to it's not just the Russians at this point. Like Clint Barnes has pissed off all the villains, one of them being Kingpin. He's stolen a lot of money from them, and they want to kill him. And so the it's not a clown. It's like what's that opera with the clown?
You mean Phantom?
Phantom of the Opera, whatever. It's a very famous, right, opera. But that type of clown, right? I can't think of the name of it. And that issue and the way it's drawn and the horror vibes you get from it, absolutely killer book. So, those two story arcs within the first two volumes are tremendous. And, full disclosure, I haven't gotten to the Lemire stuff yet, just because it was hard to, zip through 60 issues.
Yeah, that's why when I say, like, you say you're backed up, it's like, well, you are, but you also did, like, you've been doing this more lately than I have necessarily, where you're like falling, like you're trying to do something like really last minute, and it makes it so hard to read everything that you want to do for what's new, because it's just like,
well, like I said, my initial plan was Dune, and I've already read that. So
yes, right, of course. That this time isn't necessarily your fault. By the way, I think the opera you were thinking of was Pagliacci.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I actually didn't know that was called that at all.
There we go. So, like, those two arcs, but like then volume 3 is strictly Kate Bishop. She's had enough of Clint shit. She goes out west, and she's out of money, so she becomes a private detective. And so, like, each issue is sort of revolving around a case and her story. So that was a really good volume. And then volume 4 brings her back, and then I believe volumes 5 and 6 deals with an older Clint Barnes at this point.
Old Man Hawkeye's a thing for sure. Yeah, I think there was a whole Old Man Hawkeye series actually. I didn't end up. Did you end up reading that one? I haven't yet.
I haven't read Old Man Hawkeye, so maybe one of us will do that. But
he can. Yeah, maybe we can do that even after the show ends or after the show starts, because as much as I think there's obviously talking about these characters going into the series, it's worthwhile. It's also after the series is over, like we did with WandaVision, where we looked at that little compare and contrast thing with House of M and everything. Like there's a lot to look at there, because this could also be the future, because we all thought it was going to be that going in, and now it's like, okay, let's take a look at what this really was. But I'm glad that you took a look into this, because now you get a better feel for Kate Bishop, who now has her own ongoing series too, and a character who we've known about for a while. But Joe and I aren't going to read everything from Marvel. That's why we do the show. We can't individually read everything. We try to as a pair, but when it comes to Marvel, like they bounce around a lot, and then some stories are for different audiences too, which they should be, especially at Kate Bishop. I mean, that should definitely be for a younger audience. But I'm good. That's good to know that you got like an introduction. You got like a feel going into this. So I'm very curious to hear like how you feel about this show, because we know we've had some issues in the past, like with Sweet Tooth, right? It was, and I totally get that. By the way, I have read some of Sweet Tooth. I will disclose that one. I haven't read all the series, but it's like so much darker,
jarring, right?
Yeah, and like the character of Jeopard is cool in the series. Don't get me wrong. There were obviously, like, in terms of appearance, and then like having this guy be an ex-hockey player versus an ex-football player, like that stuff's fine. Like I don't care about that shit. That's not important.
Same.
What like this guy, they like kind of made him out to be an asshole in the first one, but like this guy,
tone is completely different.
In the show, he's kind of an asshole. He still has slick back hair in the fucking comic book series when we first meet him. Like everything, white Ferrari and all this kind of shit, to white pants, whatever the fuck it was brutal. Anyways, he's totally a piece of shit at the start of that series, and now it's like, I used to be one, kind of moved on from it. I wish they kind of kept that dynamic, but whatever. I still enjoyed that the show itself, but you haven't gone back and watched the whole thing yet, have you?
No, I haven't yet.
I know you said you were going to do it, but anyways, back to Hawkeye stuff. It sounds like a rock solid series.
So two last points I'll make. So I went back and watched the trailer again for Hawkeye, and there's vibes of this book in that trailer. Especially with like the arrows, because Clint, in the book, he's always talking about, well, this arrow does this, and I got an arrow for that, and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if this is the source material that they're 100% taking, and it's going to, but it's got that vibe to it. It definitely feels like there's elements of this book going to be in that show. So it'll be interesting to watch the show after reading the book and seeing. And then lastly, Hollingsworth colors, man.
So good.
I mean, he's a tremendous colorist.
So good.
But his colors in this are just tremendous. They add an extra element to the story and the art, and he might be my favorite colorist going.
I think we've talked about it more as the show's gone along, but like the colorists don't get their due. Like Jordi Belair, someone we see a lot of their artwork, and then when it comes to Hollingsworth too, same. We see more of like their work from what do you call it, Sean Murphy, because they're a tandem and everything. But two outstanding colorists in the business, and there's another one that I'm drawing a blank on too right now. But it's just. They can have such a huge impact on the vibe of the story. I mean, they have a huge impact on the vibe of the story. Like, Greg Capullo goes, he draws something and it's going to feel badass. But if the colors aren't right, like they can change the tone of the story big time. Like, even when we look at We Have Demons, like that could look like it has more of an action story with, some monsters and everything. Don't get me wrong. It gets very violent, but like that could become maybe like even more horror than they're kind of going for if you have a different colorist mixed in and all this. So it's, I know you wouldn't know because you refused to read that series, but anyways. So as I was alluding to before, you're again, throwing me the bird in front of your child. That's great, Joe. I guess any idiot can be a parent, but whatever. Anyways, so Joe is taking a look ahead to a Marvel character who we already know quite a bit about, but we're going to learn more on. I'm going to take a look at a character who we just got introduced to recently in the MCU, but most people don't know all that well, and that is Black Knight, specifically through Black Knight Curse of the Ebony Blade, which I did talk about this show as it was ongoing fairly recently. I think it was all in 2021. Only a 5-issue series by Cy Spurrier. Out from the jump, it was a 5-issue series. Artist on this is Sergio Davia. Inker, Sean Parsons. Colors was by Arif Prianto. And then the letterer is Corey Petit. And actually, we talk about the art and the colors and everything. From issue to issue, this kind of has fairly different vibes. I mean, there's definitely a lightheartedness, but there's also some darkness to this story too. And it's interesting how they kind of juxtapose that together, because that first issue is like there's a lot of action going on, but it's like, you're dealing with the Avengers and like, where's Black Knight kind of stand with all of them? And as somebody who knew not a whole lot about the character going into this series, it was, I think if you take nothing else from this conversation, I say this is a great series to learn more about this character. It's 5 issues. It moves at a really good pace. You learn more about him. You learn more about another character who I'll touch upon a little bit later. But it really gives you an understanding of what is going on with Dane Whitman, the Black Knight. As for the synopsis, the greatest knight of them all rides again. Dane Whitman is Black Knight and wielder of the magical Ebony Blade, which I'll talk about more in a second. But that blade's power comes at a terrible price. Dane forever bears the burden of its curse, an insatiable lust for blood and mayhem that constantly threatens to swallow its owner in darkness. Must that be Dane's fate? Following the battle against the King in Black, a reinvigorated Dane has a greater sense of purpose than ever before. But his sword is the key to a new enemy's evil plan, and only the Black Knight can prevent the coming death and destruction. So you guys get the idea of what's going on. Actually, I did read this going into Ebony. What is it?
Who is the publisher of this book?
Marvel.
Yeah, who the fuck's on your shirt right now?
DC. I'm sorry, Red Hood. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Come on, son.
Oh my God.
Come on, son.
You know what? Okay. I get. Okay, fine. I don't have a Black Knight shirt. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I mean, I wore the shirt I wanted to wear today. Okay. I'll make sure when we do our Mac and Goo thing tonight, give that a little tease. I'll make sure I wear all X-Men shit. Maybe I'll even wear my fucking helmet. How's that sound? If everybody who wants to see some of that, maybe I'll try and fit that on. I don't know. I got to find earbuds though. Anyways, interrupt me for that bullshit. So with, I don't even know where the fuck. I did read the one-off from King in Black with Black Knight, because I think we knew this series was coming beforehand, but I know for sure we knew we were going to meet Black Knight in the Eternals, and it was Kit Harington. So like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. Kit Harington, obviously a good actor. We like Game of Thrones up until the last fucking season. So I want to learn more about this character. If he's getting in on this character, I want to know more. So I did. So on top of going through this series and some of the things we learned, I do want to give you guys a little bit more background than I had about the character going in, as I did research in time. So Dane Whitman, actually a Massachusetts native, Gloucester, Massachusetts, apparently. He is a descendant of Percival, from King Arthur and everything. Percival, of course, we've talked about quite a bit in Once and Future. One of the first books Joe talked about on here, we've talked about a ton. We've had Kieran Gillen on. We will talk to him about that, I think, at some point down the line. But yeah, there's a shit ton of you can't talk Black Knight without talking about King Arthur. I mean, the villain in this series is Mordred. At one point, Black Knight says it's always Mordred. He's always dealing with Mordred shit. For those who want to know when you first meet Black Knight, he was in Avengers 47, but he was first aligned with the Masters of Evil, another group that I'm not necessarily as familiar with, but he was kind of trying to tear them apart from the inside out. He did become a member of the Avengers, but like that's something where we kind of learn more about in this series. Like, what is his standing with the Avengers? Like, how do they feel about him? Is he a good dude? Is he a piece of shit? All this kind of stuff. Do they take him seriously? And there's definitely a comedic element to the series, especially in that first issue. And we see it a little bit throughout, as much as it gets dark in the series too, because with the Ebony Blade, there's a lot there. But I love the comedy, and I was looking for that when we met Dane Whitman through Kit Harington and the Eternals. Like, are they going to make jokes with this character? Of course, Kit Harington is someone who we kind of can make jokes from as much as he gets serious because of, nothing Jon Snow. Like, everybody's always going to look at him as Jon Snow, and he knows nothing, so you can kind of have fun with that. They're doing that with Dane Whitman. It feels like in the Eternals. They do it in this series. I want them to joke with this character a ton. I think that's the best way to go about it, because like King Arthur stuff is all very epic. And then we meet Blade at the end of Eternals and everything. So it's like there's a lot going on. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen the movie. Not really sorry about it because it's been out long enough. But anyways, now the clock starts on me for how long I've been spoiler free. Shit. Anyways, the character was created by Roy Thomas and John Buscema. Let's see what's okay. So let's talk about the Ebony Blade a little bit, because that is something that we hear about actually brought up in the course of the Eternals movie, and not originally separate from Dane Whitman. It was, I believe, it was Angelina Jolie's character Athena that brought it up, or at least she was holding the sword, and somebody asked her if she was holding the Ebony Blade. So now some people, maybe the average MCU fan doesn't necessarily know what the hell that means. But as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, so they're going to do something with this at some point. Only a very small amount in the course of this story, because it's all about the Eternals, not so much Dane Whitman. But we get introduced to that character nonetheless. But this is if the Eternals are bringing it up, this weapon is a big deal. And this has been in Dane Whitman's family forever. You see it, the way you see it in Eternals without, it's I don't want to go and keep talking too much about the Eternals, because I don't think you've seen it yet, right?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. Well, I'm not even remotely sorry that I said that to you. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't even know. I don't know if you're going to see it, honestly. But anyways, like they talk about, I mentioned it before with the synopsis, how with this has been a long part of his family and it's impacted them in a lot of ways. Of course, they have to go and be heroes in some ways, but they also get there's mental issues within his family. There's a lot of violence that happens within his family. We see, I believe it was Percival, fight Thor in this series with the Ebony Blade. So the blade will push you to certain lengths, and it is very tough. But as we learn in King and Black and kind of get to it here, it's not so much what the blade does. It's it's all about the wielder, and then the blade feeds off of that.
I think we'll need to go back and take a look at War of the Realms, because when I was getting ready to do Venom on the show, I went back and looked at some War of the Realms stuff, and I'm pretty sure the Black Knight and the Ebony Blade makes an appearance at the beginning of War of the Realms.
Makes sense. It makes sense just because the nature of all that and how they were positioning it. But with this character, and it's no accident with Marvel or DC. When you start seeing certain characters pop up more in the comics, it absolutely means we're going to see more of them in shows, in movies, and of course we get this whole series coming. And I believe the collected edition came out, all 5 issues came out in October, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't obviously need to go get that because I already had it, but the King in Black issue, I don't think was with the collected edition, but that was definitely helpful, kind of getting to know the character more. And you see just how strong the Ebony Blade is in that quick little one-off too. But that, so when you talk about a conflicted character, Joe, you're getting that with Dane Whitman 1,000%, and with the Ebony Blade, because this is a thing that is fueled on from basically dark energy, and that doesn't necessarily mean magic. It just means negative emotions and anger, violence, all those kinds of things, fear. So he's kind of trying to battle with that as this character, but then it's like he still wants to be a hero. He still knows he has this blade and it's meant to be with him, and he still wants to do good with it. But it's like, and then he's got this other character, Mordred, who's trying to bring about the end of the world. And look, I like all the King Arthur stuff. I'm not necessarily looking for that coming into a Marvel comic. I love what they're doing with Once and Future, but I like enough with what they do with Dane Whitman, and I do think they do a good job with Mordred. I feel like I'm talking it down, but like that's not what I'm coming here for with Marvel. But I like it. I like what they do with it. More importantly, I like a little bit of conflict with this character, as you know, and I like the comedy that they kind of mix in with that throughout this as well. And it's something that you don't necessarily see with like Old Testament King Arthur shit. I know we get a little bit in Once and Future, but it's still a different vibe because that whole thing is epic in its own way. And obviously, again, we talked about that enough, but it's an awesome series. A couple other significant characters we meet. Jax, who's very new to the scene. And there's a significantly important tie for her and Dane that you guys will find if you go read the series. Not somebody I expect to see in the MCU anytime soon. They could absolutely bring her in, but I just feel like you don't want to do that too quickly. There's no real reason to, because we're only just meeting her now. But the one so you'll probably see Mordred at some point if you do get like a standalone Black Knight series, but I don't know that, or show, whatever, movie, whatever. I don't know that we will, because obviously, you can go do stuff with him in Blade, but then there's another character who I think is even more important in this specific series, who we've seen pop up. I've seen pop up twice now. She was in Deadpool with Kelly Thompson for the majority of her run, if not the entirety of it. And then I see her throughout the majority of this series as well. I think maybe 3 out of the 5 issues. Elsa Bloodstone, who is a redheaded monster hunter, total fucking badass. I think she's very versatile, like in terms of how you want to use her. You could go and make her a villain for maybe some of the characters, because we see her have issues with Dane pretty quickly in this series, and that could become an ongoing thing if you want. Of course, there's the whole thing with Blade as well, where he's a daywalker, he's a vampire. You could have her fight him as well, and still end up kind of turning her into a hero. I know some people get frustrated when they do that with Marvel, but that's a character who, like, there could easily be a thing with her. Maybe she's not the ultimate big bad, but still a big bad nonetheless. Or, I mean, still a villain nonetheless, excuse me. But seeing her pop up twice recently in, 2, like Deadpool and Black Knight, as much as there's humor, 2 very different characters, 2 like on opposite ends of the world with shit. I could easily see Elsa Bloodstone brought into the MCU. And I'm just like, I'm excited after reading this series about the future of Black Knight in the MCU, but I'm also excited about Elsa Bloodstone popping up twice with 2 series, because I think she'd be a huge asset. And with Blade coming up, I definitely think you can bring her in.
Yeah, I think Blade would be a great fit. And I mean, I haven't seen Eternals yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you right off the bat, like, I think the only real purpose of it was to allow the MCU to do 2 things. One, come up with crazy shit and get away with it, because they can use the whole timeline, right? And 2, retcon shit, right? You know what I mean? Like, so, like, okay, that didn't work. Oh, well, we can explain it away, because of the Eternals, because of Doctor Strange. Like, so they're giving themselves some leeway to be a little experimental and do some slightly off the wall things, but they also have like a built-in excuse as to say it doesn't exist anymore either. So, like, this would be, she sounds like she would be an absolutely tremendous character, and Blade would be the place to do it, or Morbius, right?
Yep. But I don't think she's someone we're going to see. I don't think she's a Spider-Man villain whatsoever. I haven't seen a whole lot of Elsa Bloodstone, but what I have, I've really, really enjoyed.
Well, right, but you've seen Blade. I mean, like, Blade crosses over, right? Like,
well, I'm talking about like from the Sony Marvel battle. Like, they're not going to go and give them.
It's all going to be owned all under the same umbrella soon, anyways. Like,
yes, this is true. You would hope.
It's so, yeah, you hope. I mean, it's so dumb at this point. It's blatantly obvious. Like, money's to be made, and people don't like to, people like to make money, so they'll find a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I do agree that you could absolutely do her with Morbius and any other, when it comes to any monster stuff and like that mystical kind of shit. I'm, as much as I say, like, I'm not coming to Marvel for King Arthur, I still like having that thrown in the mix. I think it's an interesting kind of spin, and just monsters in general. I think we're all like, I know with Wes, when we're talking about the Eternals over on Change My Mind, it's like when you're starting to bring in like this this galactic stuff, this cosmic stuff. It's like, it's a lot to kind of take in. And it's just so like, where does it end? And like, how do you buy in on? And sometimes it's tougher to like attach yourself to these characters. But when it comes to like magic and monsters and everything like that, we all have certain magic and monster stuff that we like, whether you like vampires and werewolves and that old shit, or you like Lord of the Rings, or like you and I do, or Harry Potter, like Billy and Wes do more so. Like that was a great episode of Change My Mind, all timer.
It might be the best one you guys have ever done.
Some would say, I don't know about me, but some would say that. But seriously, that was something else. Anyways. Like everybody likes monster stuff in some capacity. So I would love to see, and if you're bringing in Blade, I would think he's going to be the centerpiece for all of that. And then you can go and use Dane Whitman in that and Black Knight. And then you can go and use Elsa Bloodstone. And there are probably some others that, well, actually, you could probably do Moon Knight with that too, because he has a whole thing with the werewolf and everything where he's first introduced and whatnot. So there are definitely a few ways that you can go there. And I'd love to see Marvel kind of do like, you have this whole cosmic thing that's like really big right now, but we got this other thing kind of going on in the shadows, and we're not talking Black Widow shadows. This is like some deep, dark in the woods shadows. So I'd love to see that. But really at the end of it all, like Joe said, like with his Hawkeye series, it's a great way to get to know the character even more so in the show and direction of everything, what's going to come down the line. With Black Knight, Curse of the Ebony Blade, it's a quick, short thing. You get to know the character a little bit more. I highly recommend it just for that alone, because what is so funny. What is so funny?
There was a great little joke in there.
Oh, are you talking about what Brick said in the chat? Ebony, who let Bert's Hub Search show on the show.
Great Ebony Blade is a great short little whatever it was.
Oh, well, jeez. Okay. Nice. Well, you missed it in the end, so good job, Joe. Anyways, but yeah, I think that, we don't do Marvel a whole lot, but it's like, when you get these new characters, this is the best. Like, yeah, sure, you can go and do Wikipedia or look on like, Marvel's page and get to know these characters. But the best way to get to know them is through these stories. Like, get to know them there first, and then certain things then you can do some research. And for Black Knight, again, I haven't read a lot of other stuff, but after I read this, did additional research on the character, like this really seemed like a great encapsulation of the character and a perfect way to get introduced and get an idea of what they're going to do with Kit Harington down the line. So I'm very excited for what he's going to bring to the MCU.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think this is a fun character to play with. I mean, ultimately, what are the big plans? It's probably not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Like I said, the Eternals have given Marvel license now to get a little weird and kind of go off some beaten paths. So, let's go with it. I love it. I love the idea of it.
And he can hang with like Dane Whitman by himself can't hang with anybody, but you throw the Ebony Blade in his hands. He's a tough motherfucker. I'll tell you that right now. He gets picked on a lot, which I'm excited to see that, but he's a tough motherfucker. A little tapped, but either way. All right. So this week, I know I've heard it both ways, has something special going on. Why don't you inform the people?
So we're back, baby. Last week we got, we took a little break, but we were back last week with episode 10 of season 3. This week, Billy and I will be doing something a little special with the Psych movie dropping on Thursday. I'm thinking Friday night we might do a little movie recap. So we got that in the works for the Psych 3 movie. And then we got a little something else going on this week as well, Nick.
Okay, nice. Does the wee one want to get a shot at saying anything on the show before we go? I know she gave her a chance early on.
Let's see if she can redeem herself.
Okay. All right. Here we go. This is the moment of truth.
Smoke the mic off your head, kiddo.
Yeah.
Say something? Yeah, give me this. Give me this. Give me this. Give me this.
Nothing?
You got
nothing?
Can you say bye? Can you say TLDR, baby?
Okay. No? Well, we'll try next week. We'll definitely try next week. I thought we were going to have her fill in for you on Mac and Goo, but I guess that's not going to happen today.
No, probably not.
Yes. But we are going to be doing a little draft with Mac and Goo. We're going to be doing an X-Men draft, actually. And there's some rules that I know Goo will explain much more eloquently than I can before we do that show. But if you're listening to us on the audio version, of course, this all drops on Wednesday. If you haven't subscribed to our show on Spotify, iTunes, Geeks Worldwide Radio, make sure you go do that, because then our interviews, all the specials that we do, because I know we haven't done one of those in a while, but we will do those in the future when it warrants it. But our mainline episodes too, all of it's going to get delivered right to your phone, right to your tablet, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And also do the same with Mac and Goo. You're going to be able to go and listen to them, but we'll be live on their show, I believe around 9 Eastern time. Of course, you can watch that on the Dork Shared Universe Facebook page, Mac and Goo's YouTube channel, or over on their Twitter. But that is going to be it for TLDR this week, Joe. Until next time, stay sexy.
You know it.